whole host of sectors, what's looking good, what he's cautious on the market right now. But shifting focus once again, let's put the spotlight on the IT space. We have Mr. Nitin Rakesh, the CEO and director at Mphasis, joining us on the show to talk about this entire AI conversation that has been grappling the market in the IT space in particular. Hi, good morning, Mr. Rakesh, and thanks so much for your time. Talk to us about, will AI make Mphasis and traditional Indian IT companies redundant? What is your view over here and your take on this entire AI bubble that we're seeing?
I don't think it's a question of redundancy. I think the question really is, will we have the ability and the opportunity to reset the way we deliver services by infusing AI into our service delivery model? As such, if you think about enterprise IT, it's not a greenfield approach, right? Just because there's a new tool doesn't necessarily mean that enterprises will not need the ability to orchestrate, integrate, secure any of those new tools into their environments, because enterprise environments are not greenfield. They're what we call brownfield. So as such, I think the opportunity is very much not just about looking at what we do today, how we deliver today, but also looking at how the total addressable market is expanding. And yes, it's shifting into new areas of spend. So we have to go capture that spend. So as such, I think this is not just a threat, but also a big opportunity for Indian IT, including companies like Mphasis.
And what gives you the confidence, Nitin, that you'll be able to tap into this opportunity, and whether you or whether the entire Indian IT ecosystem?
Again, I think the key thing to note is just because you've demonstrated the ability doesn't necessarily mean that you can take the accountability. To orchestrate a solution, to deliver a new platform, to modernize an application, to run technology operations, that requires a combination of ability and accountability. So the ability to then, as I mentioned, integrate, secure, and create the right governance framework around it, traceability, data pipelines, data privacy, all of that will require a fair amount of customization and integration work. And more importantly, I think just building the AI fabric for enterprises itself is a pretty big opportunity that we are calling the AI superhighway or AI engineering. So I think new pockets of spend are opening up, and our ability to orchestrate solution where we are not only using people, but also these aspects of new tools or tools that we develop ourselves brings about a very new and interesting way of delivering IT services. And that's where I think the focus should be on who can execute and who's made enough investments in building these capabilities, both from a tech standpoint and from a people standpoint, of course.
Okay, Mr. Rakesh, talk to us about the adoption of AI within the Indian IT companies cohort. Is it going to be a case of the winner taking it all, or do you believe that the scope of adoption is so huge that there is a piece of growth for everybody in store?
I think the market is still big enough, because if you look at the overall tech spend, it's not going down. If anything, I think there is a tailwind to it. 3 to 5% increase in tech spending will happen. A lot of the spend will get repurposed, and hence the winners will be the ones who are able to pivot to where the new spend is moving, secure what they do with customers, lean on their domain expertise, lean on their context of the customer, and lean on their technical architecture design experience besides just engineering experience. So I think the market is big enough. It's not just a winner takes all. It's not just that some of these new age companies will come in and take the entire market share. I think the market share is fair game for everybody who's been in the business or who wants to enter the business, because the tool set is available to everybody.
And Nitin, will deeper domain expertise be rewarded perhaps disproportionately in your opinion?
Absolutely, because if you think about what it takes to make AI happen inside of a bank or an insurance company or an airline, it's not just about the tools that are available on a standalone basis. It's also about the context that you need to derive, not only from the domain, but from within that enterprise's tech stack. So ability to do that using things like ontology, semantic web technologies, knowledge graphs, all of that becomes extremely important. But again, I go back to the point I made earlier. Companies who've made the investments in harnessing these new technologies, in having a point of view by industry, in making sure that there's enough specialization that you're bringing on top of these tools, really determines whether you're going to win more market share or not.
Okay, and Mr. Rakesh, when we talk about AI and the benefits that it could have to enterprises, it is obviously going to create productivity gains. At a time like this, how much does one retain? How much does one look at passing through? What could the mix be?
See, if you think about, again, that depends on what type of service lines you're looking at. If you look at, software development, clearly you can see gains in double digits purely based on the first or second generation of tool adoption. But we've seen that in the past. We've seen that from, the gains we saw coming from waterfall to agile, DevOps, CI/CD pipelines, cloud native technologies also gave us a good sense of how to deal with those kind of productivity gains. There is enough and more software to be written. So just because you have more productivity doesn't necessarily mean, that there is a problem with demand. The real issue of productivity comes when you're talking about IT operations, whether it's applications or infrastructure, or even business operations, right? We've talked about BPO contact centers. There, the expectation from the client is very clear that they expect the service provider to take on the responsibility of providing these productivity gains, and in a manner take on the risk of executing, to that effect as well. So I think the question of how much gains can you keep and how much will you give back to the customer, again, depends on how you orchestrate the solution, how much cost can you take out of the solution, how much effort can you reduce from the solution. I think there is enough and more available from an efficiency standpoint to keep the customers happy and still have some left for yourself. So if you play this right, you will probably get operating leverage as a business that can either go back into your P&L or gives you currency to invest in the business for future.
And Nitin, what does it do to revenue per employee? Do the metrics now change dramatically? And if I were to just draw a corollary, would your revenue per employee double? If so, in how long? Give us that perspective.
Again, it's hard to say whether it will double, but clearly, if you look at even Mphasis, right, in the last 6 quarters, we've added revenue, but the revenue addition is outpacing the headcount addition, which means we are seeing certain operating leverage as I referred to you. Now, whether the revenue per employee will double, whether your other costs will go up, that's an equation that you have to play out depending on service type, what kind of transformation you're driving, how much tool adoption is internal versus third party, and so on. But I think if played right, the direction of travel definitely will be a higher operating leverage, and hence you might see revenue per employee continue to go up if you're playing this right. If you're not playing this right, then you will see pressure on not only revenue but also on margin because you won't be able to take effort out, but you probably have to give productivity gains to the customer, and that may not be commensurate. So it's an interesting dynamic, but again, it goes back to what kind of solutions can you orchestrate that incorporate a certain degree of tech in them versus just people-based services.
Mr. Rakesh, you mentioned pressure on revenue. Speaking about Mphasis, particularly, if you could help us understand or put into perspective what part of your revenue is going to be most impacted by AI, any percentage, if you could help us with that number?
Again, at an industry level, as I mentioned, right, you will see in the first wave, because right now we're in a phase where it's all about AI for efficiency or productivity. I think the highest productivity gains will come out of run ops, production support, maintenance, IT operations, remote infra, contact centers. But then as you start getting into some more complex areas like legacy modernization, SDLC transformation, just pure app dev, AI ops, I think those are much less susceptible because you're already infusing new tech into those. So again, for each company, depends on their portfolio. If you have a higher run component, you will see a slightly higher headwind in the short to medium term. If you're in the change business, then you probably have a bigger addressable market to go for. And interestingly, for companies that are not big on run businesses like Mphasis, it just presents a whole new area of addressable market that makes us very competitive to play in. So we are actually quite, pleased by the fact that we can now be competitive because we are not playing the scale price game. We are actually playing the competency, capability, solutions game.
Very interesting, Nitin. And will the impact be quick, snappy, or will slow adapters largely suffer? Do you believe that that will also be a trend that will play out?
I mean, in general, you have to assume that the pace of change is pretty rapid. So you don't want to be slow for the sake of being slow. But also, let's remember that the countervailing force there is that enterprise adoption of new tech, we tend to overestimate it in the short run because of this brownfield environment that I just talked about. So it's not like, we will see the impact in immediate term, but we have to be ready for it. And hence, at Mphasis, we started making these investments many years ago. And especially over the last 12, 18 months, we've accelerated them. We had launched our Neo IP platform, late last year. which kind of brings a lot of these capabilities together. So I'd rather be, only the paranoid survive mindset. So be ready for disruption today. But in reality, this will play out not in the immediate short term, but I think this is a long-term game, even from an enterprise tech standpoint.
Okay, and Mr. Rakesh, while that sounds really interesting, I have to ask you and get your view on one of your peers tying up with Anthropic, that's Mphasis. That was the big announcement that we've heard lately. Talk to us about whether with Anthropic or with other AI developments, is tie-ups going to be the way forward to try and get an enterprise adoption? Because we also have comments from the top boss at Anthropic saying that they, as of now, do not have the kind of scale to be able to go into enterprises by themselves, and maybe tie-ups is the only way forward. Do you concur with that?
Again, if you think about the last 10 years, ever since cloud became important, data became important, we basically have transitioned from playing the labor arbitrage game to the tech arbitrage game. What that means is that you have to orchestrate an ecosystem of technology solutions and then present it to the customer and execute to that. So it's not something new, right? We've talked about hyperscaler partnerships. We've talked about partnerships with the likes of Databricks, ServiceNow, Snowflake. I think this is an extension of that. Well, we are now, as an industry, transitioning into partnering with these new age players because we would like to be able to incorporate a lot of those tools and capabilities into the solution set. And having a working relationship makes it easier because you understand the engineering aspect. You can actually train people on solutioning with those tools and so on. So this is not something new. This is part and parcel of our industry. There's a reason we are called system integration businesses as well, because we integrate multiple different platforms into one, whether it's a SaaS play, whether it's an ERP platform, or it's these tech tools that clients use in their tool chains.
And Nitin, are clients asking for AI-linked price reductions? If at all, you can give us a sense of that.
Again, I think it all depends on what the solution opportunity is or the solution set is. As I mentioned, clients are definitely expecting AI efficiency in the run books because that's where they think that we can take a lot of the manual effort out. For example, production support, right, was a very incident-based service line for the last 30, 40 years, where you wait for an incident to happen, it gets routed to the right help desk, L0, L1, L2, incident gets resolved, ticket is closed, and then a bill is raised to the customer. Instead, clients are expecting us to predict incidents using data and AI, and then ingest those previous incident reports using LLMs, and then create actionable insights through agents, so we never really have the incident. So I think there is again, it depends on what part of the value chain you play in, what your service mix is. But in certain cases, there's definitely, we are very much in the middle of the phase where client expectation is that service providers will incorporate AI into those solutions and provide those productivity gains right away.
Okay, and Mr. Rakesh, lastly, talk to us about the possibility of Gen AI getting embedded on the cloud level. If and when that eventually happens, how do you believe Indian IT companies are going to react to that development?
Yeah, again, firstly, AI is not just about Gen AI. Gen AI was definitely a move forward because it gave you the ability to, to create context and summarize and inference and do probabilistic, analysis. AI is a lot broader. There is elements of machine learning. There's elements of, data in there. Bulk of these opportunities or capabilities are exploited best when you actually have the ability to combine all aspects of digital tech into AI. So natural progression is you will go from on-prem to cloud and from cloud, CPU to GPU. So from a compute standpoint, you will see more and more of cloud adoption, which is part of the reason why you're seeing massive capex being made by all the cloud providers, because they're seeing this progression play out over the next 5 to 10 years. So I think that is a natural progression. It is not something that we have to predict. It is actually something that will happen. The only thing to be determined is when, not if. In that context, you will see a broader ecosystem play. You will see partnerships across the entire value chain, not just with SaaS companies, but with platform companies, cloud companies, LLM makers, even chip makers, because there's an element of design and software that can start really at the metal itself. So I think it's an interesting dynamic, but again, technology pivots and moves every 10 to 12 years, and we are in the midst of some really interesting pivots. But as such, that is the natural progression that we will expect, that we will all go towards.
Nitin, thank you so much for joining us. This gives us great clarity on how the business is really shaping up in this new AI world. Thanks so much for joining us on ET Now.